You might have noticed that I like my sci-fi. I've always loved sci-fi, always preferred it to fantasy. I adore the notion of projecting forward, thinking about how people might live in the future, where we might be, what we might be doing long after I'm dead. I don't know why it appeals to me so much, but it does. I guess it kind of makes all the worries and anxieties of the present feel a bit less important. And so it follows that I love Star Trek. Yes, I'm a cliched, stereotypical nerd, but I'm comfortable with it. It's safe to say that Star Trek was, and still is, at its best, my favourite television show of all time. I'm of an age that I never really watched the original series with Kirk and Spock. That seemed like it required a little too much investment to overcome the 1960s aesthetic, it being so far removed from the look and feel of contemporary fiction in the 1990s. The Next Generation, however, was able to bring Star Trek into my present and provide an irresistible gateway to a universe of deep, thoughtful, provocative, emotional and meaningful stories which, at their best, tackled life, death, faith, science, progress, and human connection in ways no other popular long-running franchise ever has. Now that we're so far past it, it's easy to underestimate the importance of Star Trek, but it had an enormous impact. NASA named their first space shuttle Enterprise after the show, and the mobile phone as we know it today would not exist had this TV program not inspired its creation. I decided to pursue a career in science largely because of Star Trek, and on a personal level for a long time, I considered Jean-Luc Picard to be an ideal male role model. I looked up to that character and wanted to emulate his stoicism, level-headed pragmatism and knowledgeability. The notion of a man of science who was also educated in literature and classics, and allowed those things to inform his command decision-making. That felt like what an adult was, and it was a very positive thing for any child to aspire to. Of course, there's nothing like that in the streaming content that now carries the name Star Trek, as the franchise I'm referring to ended in 2005, with the cancellation of prequel series Enterprise, which was arguably the weakest attempt at making Star Trek, which, I remind you, ended in 2005 and has not appeared again since. So, back to 1995. How do you make a video game out of a TV series that is largely about philosophy, politics, diplomacy, and the big ideas of existence? Well, you make a point-and-click adventure game, obviously.
Introducing Star Trek: The Next Generation, a final Unity on PC CD-ROM. Take the bridge.
Make it so.
Explore fascinating new worlds. Unravel alien mysteries and defend the Starship Enterprise. To boldly go where no one has gone before. A final Unity from Spectrum Holobyte. An original interactive adventure with the actual voices of all the crew.
I'm Commander Riker of the Federation Starship Enterprise. Can you help us find the original fifth scroll?
I can let you see the true copy made by Baranon, our sect's founder.
We're doing this for historical research. I'm sure you understand that no matter how good your copy is, we need to check the original for authenticity.
This was quite a smart decision looking back, as there'd been some truly dreadful attempts at adapting Star Trek on the 8 and 16-bit consoles. They all fell back onto what they knew from gaming, which was that there has to be shooting, or else it's not a game. The problem with that is, if it's mostly shooting, it's mostly not Star Trek. Uninspired platforming on the DS9 game and unintuitive busywork on the next-gen offerings meant that the only real success to that point had been the Star Trek 25th Anniversary adventure game on PC, and its sequel Judgment rights. These games captured the tone of the original show not just by getting the actors to reprise their roles, for the CD-ROM re-release anyway, but by basing the game around using your brain, solving puzzles and unravelling mysteries.
I don't suppose you'd enjoy the psychological release of a few good belly laughs, Spock. We could open the canister right here if you like.
I would strongly recommend against it, Doctor.
It allowed players to take in the story at their own pace and make it feel like you are genuinely exploring the world of Star Trek. A final Unity does much the same thing for the Next Generation crew.
It's a neutronium hull, all right, and a powerful energy source. I've never seen that much power in such a small package before.
Right away, the presentation was stunning for the time, setting itself up as an episode of the show, complete with opening title sequence, and even the post-intro credits that would pop up with the title of the episode. All the principal cast reprised their roles as the main crew, and since the game was released on CD-ROM, every line of dialogue is spoken aloud.
The preserve clearly embodies your philosophy of life forms living within life forms to create a single harmonious organism. It is an impressive achievement.
I remember being impressed with the performances too. I never got the sense anyone was phoning it in because it was just a video game. All of these guys sound exactly like they do in the show, and that makes a big difference.
We are within sensor range of the Mertens orbital station, sir.
On screen. Miss LaForge?
LaForge here.
Report. What is the condition of the station?
You're looking at what's left of the Mertens orbital station, one of the largest research centers in the Federation.
There are, notably, a few different gameplay elements to get to grips with here. First and foremost, there's a point-and-click adventure, and this makes up the bulk of the runtime, as you spend a good chunk of the game on away missions to space stations and alien planets.
We did it. Now what took you so long to find me?
On the Enterprise, the game is largely dialogue choice-based, allowing you to ask questions of crew and guests to discover the lore and clues on how to proceed, but also forcing you to negotiate through some tense situations, such as a standoff with a Garidian warbird right at the start of the game. There are many ways this can go, and your choices do matter. You can play it cool and convince the warbird to withdraw, or you can get aggressive and start a fight.
The warbird is hailing us. Ignore that. They are loading their torpedo tubes. Evasive maneuvers.
That's where the third gameplay type comes in. Ship combat in a final Unity is, let's face it, not great. You can issue orders to do specific maneuvers or take direct control and move about with the keyboard, but it's extremely basic and it's easy to get a bit lost in the starscape while the enemy just blasts away at you from distance. There are some nice touches here though, like how you can adjust the power levels between weapons, shields and propulsion. This actually has an impact on how quickly you can get places even at warp, and these systems would be fleshed out in later games like Bridge Commander. Anyway, you can, fortunately, leave the fighting to Mr. Worf, who will usually see you alright, unless you recklessly charge into Romulan space and get into it with 3 or 4 warbirds at once. You see, that's another aspect of the game I found amazing at the time. You can go to astronavigation and travel to absolutely any part of the known Star Trek universe at any time. You don't have to follow the critical path, you can just warp wherever you like. There's no reason to, there's no cool hidden resources to collect, no special side missions waiting for you on SETI Alpha 5, but you can go there. They even modelled star bases where you can go to get repaired after a fight, and this made it feel like you were actually in command of the Enterprise, rather than just working through another story set on it. Eventually though, you realise there's nothing left to do but follow the rest of the story, and it's actually a pretty good one, with some interesting in-universe ramifications. Turns out an ancient civilization known as the Chodak have reappeared, and have spooked the Romulans into outfitting their entire fleet for speed and racing through Federation space to find a massive machine known as the Unity device. Of course, everyone else is looking for it too, including Picard and co., and those who know their Trek very well will recognise this as cribbing a lot from an episode called The Chase, but as that was a very good episode, I didn't mind too much. Suffice to say, this is a fantastic adventure filled with colourful characters and faithful recreations of the crew. Its puzzles aren't too taxing, and it's a thrill to be in charge of the Enterprise. This is easily the best Star Trek video game ever made, and it isn't close. Hey, you can even go into the holodeck to watch all the cutscenes you've unlocked. Come on now, 11 out of 10.
Until our next encounter.
Until then.
It would seem that we are not completely dissimilar after all, in our hopes or in our fears.
Yes.
Well then, perhaps one day.
One day.